Under the blazing torches of an 1800s tribal council, a bound outsider stood accused of the unthinkable, speaking to the chief's daughter. Warriors cried for blood, but one trembling voice changed everything. What she revealed rewrote his destiny forever. Watch till the end, and tell us where you're watching from. Let's get started. The night pressed heavy over the wilderness, the camp alive with faint embers and the rustle of restless spirits. A pale moon spilled its glow across hides and timber lodges, catching the silhouettes of villagers, whispering in urgency. Word spread fast. The outsider, a rugged wanderer with weathered boots and untamed hair, had been seen with the chief's daughter. She was young and radiant, a symbol of purity among her people, untouched by outsiders. Yet under the cloak of night, she had dared to meet his eyes. Their shadowed figures together struck terror and fury into the tribe's heart. By dawn, the whispers grew into fire. The slow pounding of war drums shook the air, calling the people to judgment. From every direction, men, women, and children gathered, circling the sacred fire where decisions of life and death were made. Into this circle the outsider was dragged, his wrists bound tightly with rawhide straps that bit into his flesh. His boots scraped the packed earth, yet he stumbled with dignity intact. Torches flared high, casting jagged light on his rugged face. He neither begged nor spoke. His silence unsettled them more than any protest. The chief towered above him, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a cloak of bear hide. His face was carved with years of leadership, eyes sharp as flint. In his presence, even the bravest warriors bent their gaze, but not the outsider. Though bound, he lifted his head, unbroken. The chief's voice thundered across the circle, shaking the hearts of all. "You dare touch what is sacred?" His words split the night, echoed by warriors pounding their spears into the earth. The crowd roared agreement, demanding punishment swift and merciless. Still, the stranger gave no word in his defense. The daughter stood among the crowd, her braid hanging heavy down her back, her eyes wide with unshed tears. Her heart pounded against her chest as she watched the man dragged before her father. She had not meant for this, had not meant for their secret meeting to turn into a public storm. All she had wanted was a glimpse of something beyond her world, someone who saw her not as the chief's daughter, but as a woman. And now that desire had placed the outsider's life upon the edge of a knife. Warriors encircled him, their faces painted in the red and black of judgment. Their voices rose like wolves howling for blood, fierce and united. They shouted of insult, of dishonor, of traditions broken. One slammed the butt of his spear into the ground, demanding death by fire. Another called for the man to be cast out into the wilderness, bound and left for the beasts. The crowd swelled with rage, their cries twisting into a single demand: punish him. The air grew thick with fury. Yet in the heart of the storm, the outsider stood silent, his eyes steady. The fire crackled, flames reflecting in the eyes of every villager. Old women clutched their shawls, muttering prayers to ward off curses. Children clung to their mothers' skirts, wide-eyed and trembling. Even the elders shifted uneasily, remembering tales of past betrayals. The chief raised his hand and silence fell. He stepped closer to the outsider, his breath visible in the cold morning air. "You bring shame upon this circle," he declared. "You, who came from the world beyond, dared to touch what belongs to the tribe." His words carried the weight of centuries. Still, the outsider did not flinch. He stood tall, though the ropes cut into his skin, though torches scorched his face with heat. His silence spoke louder than words, and the people saw it, though they did not understand it. A man facing death with no plea for mercy, it unnerved them, rattled their certainty. Some began to murmur, questioning in hushed voices. Was guilt always so quiet? Or was it the strength of a man who carried truth? The daughter's heart twisted, for she knew what he carried. He bore her secret, her honor upon his silence. And for it, he would surely die. Her tears finally spilled, gleaming in the torchlight. She could no longer hide the storm raging within her. She knew if she remained silent, he would be condemned without question. Yet to speak meant defying her father, the chief, and the traditions that bound their people. Still, when she looked upon him, his stillness, his quiet dignity, something within her broke. She stepped forward only one pace, but enough to draw every eye. The circle gasped, and the drums faltered. The chief's daughter had moved, her presence carrying weight even beyond her father's command. The chief's eyes narrowed at her, a storm gathering in his expression. "Daughter," he warned, his voice edged with thunder. Yet she did not retreat. She lifted her chin, her braid swaying, her tears drying into resolve. She had not spoken yet, but her very stance defied the circle's fury. Her heart raced, yet she stood in the fire's glow, knowing she could not remain still. Around her whispers rose, scandalous and sharp. No daughter had ever stepped into judgment's circle, but love, or something like it, had given her the strength. The people braced, sensing something forbidden was about to break. The outsider turned his head slightly, his eyes meeting hers across the fire. Though no words passed between them, the look spoke volumes. He did not bow nor beg. Instead, he gave her the smallest nod, as though to tell her that whatever came, he would endure it, that he had chosen silence not for himself, but for her. Her chest ached, and a single thought burned through her. He should not die for her sake. Tradition, pride, fury, all of it weighed against the truth. And she knew with absolute certainty that the truth must be spoken. But before she could open her mouth, the council's oldest warrior stepped forward. His scarred hands gripped a spear, his voice deep as gravel. "Chief, this man defied us. He must pay the price. If you do not act, the people will see weakness." The tribe growled agreement, voices swelling once more. The chief's face hardened, torn between law and blood. His daughter clenched her fists, heart pounding as the moment to decide closed in. Her voice trembled on the edge of release. She knew the storm could only be broken by truth, and she would bear the cost. In the circle of fire and fury, fate hung suspended. The chief loomed over the bound outsider, the tribe howling for punishment. The daughter's tears shone in the torchlight as she prepared to step fully forward, ready to defy tradition for the sake of justice. The stranger's silence remained unbroken, a shield that held her dignity safe even as it condemned him. In that fragile moment between judgment and salvation, the fire's shadows danced across their faces, and destiny itself trembled. No one yet knew that her next words would shake the tribe to its core. The circle of judgment tightened, the council's fire raging as voices crashed like thunder. Warriors demanded punishment, their painted faces fierce with rage. Elders muttered of tradition broken, honor stained, and spirits offended. The outsider stood bound, shoulders square, though his fate seemed already sealed. The people's cries swelled louder, every chant for his blood echoing against the dawn. Yet through the roar came a softer sound, the rustle of buckskin as the chief's daughter stepped forward. Her feet touched the sacred ground, her presence silencing voices as if the fire itself bowed before her courage. Gasps tore through the crowd, disbelief spreading faster than flame. No daughter had ever dared cross into the council circle, a place reserved for chiefs, warriors, and spirits. Her braid hung heavy against her back, her breath quick, her eyes wide but determined. She looked not at her father, but at the bound stranger who stood in silence, his scars lit by the fire's glow. Her voice trembled as it rose, fragile yet cutting through the air with the force of thunder. "He is no thief of honor," she cried. "He saved me!" The words shattered the night. The tribe recoiled, whispers racing like startled birds. Women clutched their children. Men scowled with disbelief. Elders leaned forward in shock. The young warriors, restless and sharp, lowered their spears just slightly, curious to hear more. The chief's face hardened, his eyes narrowing upon his daughter. "Speak clearly," he commanded, his voice deep as the earth. She swallowed hard, summoning strength she never knew she possessed. "He fought the beast," she declared, her voice steady now. "I strayed beyond the fire and death found me. But he placed himself between, and his blood paid the price of my life." Murmurs rippled across the circle as eyes shifted to the outsider's arms, the scars gleaming like silver in the firelight. The shaman, ancient and hunched, leaned on her staff and nodded slowly. Her cracked voice rose above the whispers. "The scars tell truth. He carries the mark of the spirits." His silence was sacrifice, not shame. The weight of her words pressed heavy upon the people. Warriors glanced uneasily at one another, their cries for punishment faltering. Slowly, the sound of fury ebbed into silence, leaving only the crackle of fire and the beating of hearts in the cold night. The chief studied the man long and hard, his face unreadable. Pride warred with rage within him, his daughter's words pulling against the traditions of countless generations. His people demanded vengeance, but his blood demanded justice. He saw the outsider's steady gaze, unflinching, unafraid, yet without arrogance. The man had spoken no words, and yet his silence carried dignity. At his side, his daughter stood, fragile yet radiant with defiance, risking everything to tell the truth. The chief's jaw clenched as he weighed their fate, the balance of tribe and family pressing down on his every breath. The circle waited, holding its breath, eyes fixed on the chief. His hand hovered, each moment stretching like an eternity. Finally he lifted it high, palm open to the fire. "Enough!" he thundered, his voice rolling across the camp. "This man is no enemy. He has proven courage. He shall not be cast out nor slain." His hand swept wide, silencing murmurs. "He shall stay, not as a prisoner, but as kin." Gasps spread once more, but this time they carried awe instead of fury. Tradition had bent, not broken. A new path had been carved in the ashes of firelight. The ropes were cut with sharp blades, falling from his wrists like dead serpents. The marks they left were deep, red against his skin, yet his posture remained unbowed. He flexed his hands slowly, eyes meeting the chief's with a look of quiet respect. No words of gratitude left his lips. Instead, his silence remained his honor, a vow stronger than any speech. The daughter's breath caught, relief flooding her chest. She had risked everything, and he had endured everything, and together they had turned fate upon its head. Around them, the people shifted, no longer certain, yet no longer hostile. At the edge of the circle, the shaman lifted her staff once more, tapping it against the earth. "The spirits mark the brave," she murmured, her voice carrying through the crowd. "Blood spilled in silence is more sacred than cries for glory." Her words were not law, but they were truth, and the people bowed their heads. Children, who had once trembled, now peered curiously at the stranger. Women whispered that perhaps courage wore many skins. Even warriors who had shouted loudest lowered their spears, unwilling to challenge both their chief and the spirit's witness. The daughter stepped closer, her face illuminated by the dying fire. She reached out, brushing her hand gently against the man's arm, where scars crossed like rivers of pain. "Twice you have saved me," she whispered, once from the beast and once from judgment. Her voice carried only to him, yet its weight struck deep. For the first time his lips parted, not in speech, but in the faintest breath of relief. Their bond, forged in fear and silence, had been tempered in fire. Though no words bound them, a truth deeper than language had already taken root. As dawn crept across the horizon, painting the camp in hues of gold and rose, the circle dispersed. Warriors returned to their lodges, elders to their prayers, mothers to their children. Yet all carried with them the memory of the night when tradition bent to truth. The outsider stood free, the daughter beside him, their figures lit by morning's glow. The chief, though stern, allowed it, his pride masked by authority. He had chosen not weakness, but wisdom, the wisdom to see honor where others saw only danger. The tribe had changed that night, though none would yet admit it aloud. At sunrise, the drums fell silent, replaced by birdsong in the trees. The stranger no longer stood as an outcast, nor the daughter as a reckless dreamer. Together they stood as kin beneath the chief's decree. The tribe watched with wary eyes, some hopeful, some doubtful, but none able to deny the shift that had taken place. The fire had tested them all and left them altered. The ropes lay forgotten in the dirt, symbols of chains broken not just from wrists, but from hearts. In the stillness of morning, a new destiny began, written not in blood, but in truth. The outsider breathed in the cold air. the weight of survival heavy upon him, yet lifted by something greater than freedom. Beside him, the daughter's eyes shone with courage, no longer dimmed by fear. Around them, the tribe carried on, yet the memory of the night lingered, etched into every glance and every whisper. The man, once bound for death, now stood with a place among them. And though no vows had been spoken, no promises sealed, he knew his fate had been rewritten, not by his own hand, but by the courage of a daughter who dared to speak.